Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2019 Media Conference at the Hyatt Regency, Sydney, for the official launch of the Australian Business Summit Council, Inc. My name is Dr. Frank Alafaci. I'm the President of the ABSC Inc. And let me begin by saluting the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet and paying my respects to their elders, past and present. As I look at the calibre of the people in this venue, I'm inclined to think of what the late great US President John Fitzgerald Kennedy once remarked about the guests whom he had invited for an official reception. He said, "I think that this is the most extraordinary collection of talent that has ever been gathered together at the White House, with the possible exception of when Thomas Jefferson dined alone." It would indeed be remiss of me were I not to acknowledge the VIPs among us, consular officials, business leaders, and New South Wales and Australian government officials at this important gathering of elite representative figures. May I acknowledge, and as I do, would you please stand, although I realise that some of the guests are running late, but I will still announce them anyway. The Consul General of Romania, Mr. Julian Niti. The Consul General of Colombia, Ms. Nancy Benitez Paez. The Consul General of Serbia, Mr. Branko Radosevic. The Consul General and Trade Commissioner of Fiji, Mr. Zarak Khan. The Deputy Consul General of Brazil, Mr. Joaquim Pedro Pena. He must be on his way. The Deputy Consul General of Egypt, Mr. Mohammed Fargal. The Consul of Malaysia and Director of the Malaysian Investment Development Authority, Ms. Fatma Ahmed, whom I believe will be coming very, very, very soon. The Consul Commercial of Sri Lanka, Mr. Abdul Harim. The Director of the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office, Ms. Yaping Chu. The Commercial Attaché at the Consulate General of Turkey, Mr. and forgive me if my pronunciation is wrong, Mr. Selçuk Bozok. The Trade Officer of the Philippine Trade and Investment Centre at the Consulate General of the Philippines, Mr. Carlito Jun Gunay. The Chair of the Export Council of Australia, Ms. Diane Tipping. The Senior Manager for India and ASEAN Trade and Investment Section, New South Wales Department of Industry, Mr. Guy Bokenstein. Okay, and my ever-reliable wife has just informed me that the Deputy Consul General of Brazil has arrived. Is that correct? Thank you, sir. The President of the Australia-Brazil Business Council, Dr. Gleuto Serafim. The President of MUSIAD, the Turkish Industrialists and Businessmen's Association, Mr. Hasan Göktürk. The Head of Trade Relations for Australia and Lebanon from the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Michael Ritzk. The Secretary General of the Australia-China Friendship and Exchange Association, Mr. Michael Harkins, MVO, PSM, KSJ. I'll explain the meaning of that later to you. The Executive Chairman of the Australia-China Business Summit, Mr. Bian Jun. The Director of the Rongxiao Financial Group, Mr. Fan Song Ye. Not here. The Director of the Alliance Project Group, Mr. Ruad El Ayoubi. The Chief Executive of the AMMM Group, Professor Abun Malak, is an apology. The Managing Partner at Hunt & Hunt Lawyers, Mr. Jim Harrowell, AM. And the Co-Founder and Chairman of William Roberts Lawyers, Mr. Robert Ishak. The Australian Business Council Inc was established on the 20th of December 2018 with the Council's formal registration as an incorporated association at New South Wales Fair Trading, Sydney, Australia. Its founding members and others on the board of directors comprise high-profile, experienced and well-connected CEOs and professionals from the Australian business community. As the president of the ABSC Inc, I'm pleased to introduce the Australian Business Summit Council as the new peak organisation that is specifically committed to the progress and competitiveness of the Australian economy and its relationship with the international environment. More specifically, the Australian Business Summit Council aims to serve as a medium for sound policies, business policies and practices to promote a vibrant, sustainable economy in Australia, to enable business leaders to network and augment business opportunities in Australia and abroad, to lobby for the trading rights of Australian businesses, both nationally and on an international scale, and to stimulate informative debates and discussions on issues pertaining to business relationships between Australia and the international community. Under my leadership, the Australian Business Summit Council Inc will endeavour to advance the interests of small, medium-sized and large Australian businesses by furthering multilateral business relationships within the national economy and extraterritorially through informative seminars, conferences, partnerships, expos, memorandums of understanding, or should it be memoranda of understanding, trade delegation meetings, negotiations with political and business leaders, as well as participation in national and international economic roundtables. On behalf of the ABSC Inc's Board of Directors, I would like to commend the Australian Business Summit Council to the national and international business community for our commitment to economic progress and development, appealing to like-minded individuals and organisations to become involved with the Council's aspirations, modus operandi and long-range perspectives. Thank you. Please allow me now the opportunity to yield the podium to the first of 4 high-profile keynote speakers who have given generously of their time to attend this media conference. Ms. Diane Tipping is the Chair of the Export Council of Australia. Diane is also the founder and managing director of XCon International Pty Limited, an export management consultancy business that focuses on the management of exports and international projects on behalf of Australian exporters throughout the world. Diane has spent over 20 years working with the Australian Institute of Export and various government as well as non-government agencies to teach and encourage exporters to achieve their global ambitions, promoting the expansion of Australia's massive export potential. Today, Diane will speak to us about the pattern and direction of Australia's trade, export programs, impediments and solutions. Can we please welcome Diane to the podium?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the Australian Business Summit Council, in particular Frank, thank you, for inviting me to speak on a subject of importance to the Export Council of Australia and to all Australians. Over the past 50 years, the direction and composition of Australia's trade has evolved, responding to shifts in Australia's economy and the global economic climate. In the 1960s, the majority of Australia's trade took place with Europe and North America. Both our export market and import source has now shifted geographically towards Asia. Asia now accounts for over 60% of Australia's two-way goods and services trade, and that's an important word, services, as well. As Australia's export markets have shifted, so too have the commodities we export. At the beginning of the 50-year period, rural commodities dominated Australia's exports. After a period during which the 4 major export sectors shared a roughly even split of the export market, the minerals and fuels sector now dominates. One thing has remained constant though: trade remains a critical contributor to Australia's economic prosperity. International trade and investment is critical to the Australian economy, providing jobs and prosperity International trade and investment, and that's another important word, opens up opportunities for Australians to expand their business. Trade agreements can improve market access across all areas of trade, goods, services and investment, and help to maintain and stimulate competitiveness of Australian firms. This benefits Australian consumers through access to an increased range of better value goods and services. Commodities have long constituted the majority of Australian exports, averaging 73% by value over the past century. While there has been a diversification away from commodity exports, they still account for over half of goods exported. Manufacturing export prices have risen more slowly than those of commodities, at least over the last 30 years. However, services account for a significant amount of trade with other countries. Export of services went up Australian dollars 16 million in 2018 to Australian dollars 7.98 billion, mainly driven by tourism and related services. Australia is a world-class provider of a range of services such as professional services, education and tourism, financial services, energy and mining related services, environmental services and financial technology, fintech. These are Australia's priority sectors for improving market access to global services and part of our trade reform efforts. Australia has programs aimed at promoting export involvement among SMEs. However, and despite this, most SMEs continue to ignore exporting as a viable business strategy. So my discussion today is about the impediments, as Frank mentioned. Information on perceived impediments to export involvement, especially from the non-exporting view or perspective, is often lacking. Of all the registered companies in Australia, 95% are classified as SMEs. Of that 95%, only 14% export, and that's services or goods. It doesn't matter which way you look at it, only 14% export. The world average is 25%. Australia is a developed country. Why do we have such a low percentage? The most accepted reason for the lack of growth in SMEs is their internal capabilities and human resource issues. This includes insufficient knowledge about export opportunities and lack of personnel knowledgeable in exporting. Efforts aimed at encouraging more SMEs to take up exporting are unlikely or are likely to fail if they do not address the non-exporters' concerns. There are many non-exporting firms which would consider exporting if only they could receive appropriate help. It is thus important for all of us, both industry organisations and state and federal governments involved in export promotion, to understand perceived impediments to export involvement from the non-exporter's perspective. To understand those is really, really important. They are quite frightened about the concept of going into another country, of the financial disadvantages of going into another country. Such information that we can provide can help in designing export promotional programs that will address these concerns and help improve uptake of exporting as a business strategy. I cannot miss this opportunity to promote the Export Council of Australia as the peak membership body for companies involved in international trade. The Export Council of Australia has a long, proud history of supporting Australian international business. We have been supporting companies to grow internationally for over 63 years. The ECA has the development of Australia's resources by the promotion of Australian industry in international markets as our primary goal. We achieve this goal by developing international business skills, building Australian business capacity, conducting the international market research, helping to break down barriers to trade, building global networks, informing Australian trade policy. We have assisted many companies to tap into the global market. I would like if you all would please visit our website to have a look at our key export programs. There are, though, also many other organisations that can assist in different ways. Industry councils such as the ABS are there to guide and direct in this area as well. Austrade provides information on how you can be export ready and also provides excellent information on in-market profiles. The Export Finance Insurance Corporation, EFIC as we know them, provides a range of helpful resources, In collaboration with the Export Council of Australia, EFIC has released a mobile app to help fill the information gap for Australian and small and medium-sized enterprises in the area of financing. The Export Council of Australia has published an Australian Export Handbook, providing a comprehensive guide to all of the practical aspects of managing an international business. All state governments provide a range of helpful resources, such as funded assistance to help business strategically identify, plan and meet their business goals, as well as export award programs, regular export seminars and many other programs to assist SMEs to enter and grow in the international arena. Australian government research has shown that growth rates of output, productivity, wages and investment are consistently higher for continuous exporters. Exporting exposes companies to new ideas, management practices, marketing techniques and ways of competing that a company wouldn't have experience of by staying at home. All of this considerably improves their ability to compete in the domestic market also, as well. By going international, a company can become more efficient and increase their productivity. Why export? I've already said a few of those points. Why export? Exporting can open your business to different markets, create alternative revenue streams, help you to reduce risk and dependence on your home market. Always takes some time to understand how free trade agreements can impact a target market and your ability to expand. But once you do the study, once you talk to industry groups, to government, to Austrade and other organisations, they break down the barriers to this information. There are people out there that want to help. So exporting can be a profitable way of expanding your business, spreading your risks and reducing your dependence on the local market. Exporting companies have better growth prospects, highly skilled, highly productive staff, and tend to adapt technology and best practices faster. This is why the Export Council publishes our trade policy recommendations every year for presentation to government. The ECA believes that as the leading skills development body in Australia for trade, we need to continually build on our programs and ensure that government also continues to build on their assistance and offerings to all companies in Australia that already trade internationally or wish to trade. Think global, think ECA. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Diane, for that comprehensive presentation of some of the issues that the Australian Business Summit Council Inc. proposes to delve further into so as to provide realistic practical suggestions, recommendations and long-term solutions in the furtherance of promoting a viable, sustainable business relationship with our known trading partners and new sources of export markets. And this organisation that we're officially launching today certainly looks forward to entering into a long-term working relationship with the Export Council of Australia and certainly some of the other organisations that you were very, very kind enough to allude to during the course of your presentation. Thank you so very much. Now, I'd like to invite everybody to please help yourselves to the food that the Hyatt Regency have been kind enough to provide us with. I don't want you to starve because there are another 3 speakers. Okay, so please delve into the food and enjoy yourselves. Our second keynote speaker for today is Mr. Jim Harrowell, AM. Jim's a specialist commercial litigation lawyer. As a director and former chairman of Interlaw, and through his wide network of contacts in more than 115 major global cities, Jim has provided commercial advice to clients for over 20 years, ranging from negotiating joint ventures and resolving disputes to mediation, litigation and arbitration. In 2006, Jim was appointed a member of the Order of Australia for service to international relations, particularly the development of legal and business links with China. He is one of 7 Australians appointed to the China International Economic and Trade Arbitration Commission, panel of arbitrators, and is the only Australian appointed to the Shanghai Arbitration Commission. Plus, he regularly presents seminars on China and assists Austrade programs in Beijing and China. Currently, Jim is the Managing Director with Hunt & Hunt Lawyers, the exclusive Interlaw member firm of Australia. Today, Jim, I believe, will address us about the immense opportunities for Australian food producers in Asia. May I please have a huge round of applause for Jim Harrowell.
Thanks for that kind introduction, Frank. Food production is something which was the very foundation of this country. In 1809, the first 10 bales of Australian wool was sent to England to pay the legal fees for John Macarthur because he'd deposed the governor, but that was another story. Those bales of wool were sold for $2.32 a kilo. Up until the last few years, we were battling to get $7 a kilo for our wool. We're now rejoicing in the highest prices for a long time. In fact, the highest prices ever. The only problem in New South Wales is we have a drought. My family has been involved in agriculture much longer than we've been lawyers. This country its foundation has always been on exports. The moment that it became sufficient to feed the people of New South Wales, it began exporting product from New South Wales. Now, during the course of the China Free Trade Agreement, a lot of politicians were talking about us being basically the food bowl of Asia. Well, that'd be something nice to aspire to, but the Australian markets cannot possibly satisfy the level of demand in Asia. But we can satisfy the market in particular niche areas. Last year I was in Shanghai in my role as the New South Wales Special Envoy for China with Minister Niall Blair, where he launched for the first time the sale of Australian mainland cherries in China. Now, those cherries came from the town of Young in New South Wales. That market, the cherry market in China, is so big it could take the whole of the cherry supply of New South Wales 5 or 6 times over. It's a huge new opportunity. It's a market which 12 months ago for New South Wales didn't exist. There's a whole lot of other commodities that we can look at. Fruit, beef products. We're still challenged with exporting beef from Australia. In some of our markets there are restrictions on particularly chilled beef, and it's quite hard for our processors in New South Wales to get permits to export frozen beef. And we're working on that, particularly with the Chinese authorities at the moment, because with the emerging middle classes on our near neighbours in Asia, particularly Indonesia, Malaysia, and China, of course, there's a huge demand for premium products. Give you an example, lobsters from Tasmania. Following the visit of the President of China to Tasmania a couple of years ago, there was a huge uplift in the export of food products from Tasmania to China. In fact, the Premier of Tasmania jokingly said to me at one stage that Tasmanians can't buy lobsters now because they're all on the plane to China. But those things are important. Dyer's emphasised the importance of export. Australia lives in a global economy. We rely in this country on what we sell abroad. We're essentially turning into a service business in Australia in many respects. And yes, we've got wonderful trade figures, but if you take the iron ore and the coal out of our trade figures, it's not as big as you think. And there's a crying need to diversify the sort of products that we're selling overseas. And there's tremendous competition. I mean, we somehow think that we've got an exclusive right to the Asian market, for example. We don't. Brazil, who's represented here, is selling fantastic iron ore to the Chinese, and the Brazilian iron ore meets all the quality standards of Australian iron ore. So we're competing. Everyone wants to sell to China. So how do we develop food products which are special? Well, we have several advantages. We're clean, we're green, but again, some of our markets where we're selling these premium products, they want to absolutely be certain of quality control. Traceability for the export, for instance, of our meat products is a big issue in parts of Asia, particularly in China. They want to know which farm the animal came from. They want to know that it wasn't fed on any supplements which are dangerous. So we have to work hard in those markets. But there are huge opportunities, and organisations like the newly launched Australian Business Summit Council can play a critical role. The Export Council of Australia is encouraging people and has worked for decades in enhancing export out of Australia. And the opportunities are there. You don't have to be, on our family farm we have about 3,000 sheep. But if you're a fruit grower, if you're a cherry grower in Young, with e-commerce these days, you can be exporting 30 or 40 boxes of cherries to China. You don't have to have the mass. You don't necessarily, with the internet, have to have people on the ground. But you've got to have the courage to have a go. You've got to be able to find out what's needed. You've got to have organisations like this body that Frank's launched today to help on lobbying governments. You've got to be able to interface with the authorities overseas. You've probably read the last few days stories about our coal being held up off China. Well, there's a story today saying that it's a beat up and they're only checking it for environmental reasons. That may be so. I did sit next to the Chinese ambassador at lunch, but I didn't feel that I should ask him while we were having lunch. Might have been a bit too controversial. But the point is that's where organisations such as the Australian Business Summit Council can itself and in combination with others do really good work in enhancing the opportunities for Australian business. The Australia-China Business Council did a study a few years ago about the benefits to Australian households from international trade with, and I'm speaking about China alone. And when we did our first report, and this was done by independent consultants, it was assessed that every Australian household gained a benefit of about $8,000 from the trade with China. The last report said that had grown to nearly $20,000. And that doesn't mean that that Australian household is directly trading with China, but that is the benefit that flows through the system and back into that household. Now here in New South Wales, we have a department which works hard to promote two-way trade and investment. In conjunction with Austrade, we don't waste money duplicating things, but to be effective, it needs to have people with the courage to engage in international trade. And the final comment I'll make is that in this room, from the different countries everyone's come from, really demonstrates the cultural diversity of this country. And I've spoken a lot about Asia, but there's no reason why the Middle East, in fact there's every reason why the Middle East must be on as a target for Australian exports and Australian investment. Same with Europe, and not just the traditional countries. We go back to Britain all the time, but Britain's Brexited, so we'll see what happens there. But some of the Central European countries, and we need to take advantage of the cultural diversity and cultural connections with our export and our development of product to be exported from Australia. We've got a wonderful asset here. I mean, the asset, the people who have come to this country as migrants, and many of the jurisdictions represent in this room, present a great asset which the Australian Business Summit Council can work with for the purpose of advancing Australian trade, two-way trade and investment. So I congratulate Frank and his team on creating the organisation and wish it all the very best for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for your kind words as always. And Jim, I may not have mentioned, is the New South Wales government's trade representative to China. He's also a fellow board member of the Australia-China Friendship and Exchange Association, and it's always wonderful to do with experienced gentlemen like himself. My father always used to tell me as I was growing up, always try to deal with people who are better than you are and pay their expenses. I mean, I've never had to pay any of Jim's expenses, but I tell you what, if I ever had to, I wouldn't think twice about it. Now, I got a very, very important message, my mobile phone. Any message that I receive from Sylvia is important. As those of you who know her, she's the boss. And she said to me here, explain the gift. And I better explain it to you, otherwise I'll never hear the end of it later on. As you can see on the tables there, you have a memento. Now, if you open it up, you'll see that it's a what's it called? A mouse pad. Is that what it's called? This is an exercise in self-promotion with the ABSC Inc. Logo on it and the website. So whether you're at home, when you're at home, or wherever you happen to be in your office, you'll never be able to get away from the ABSC.
You should have just had your face on that.
That's good. Maybe her face. She's more attractive. Anyway, thanks, Jim. Thank you so very much for your well-reasoned analysis of the need for Australia to explore the various means at its disposal to augment business and investment opportunities in an increasingly significant region for our economic growth performance. At this point, I'd like to mention that there will be a question and answer session later during this event where members of the audience will be invited to comment or ask questions. Moving on to our third keynote speaker for today, I'm honoured and privileged to invite Mr. Michael Rizk to the podium. Michael has been a director in the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce since 1987, occupying the position of president for 6 years. At present, Michael is the head of trade relations between Australia and Lebanon. During a period spanning more than 20 years, Michael has exported Australian food products, primarily honey, to the Middle East and maintained a continuous trade link with Lebanon, organising several trade missions to the country, including the first Australian product exhibition in 1997 during the official visit of the then Premier of New South Wales, Bob Carr, together with a large official business and media delegation. Michael has presented to government departments, universities and schools to give an accurate picture of Lebanon's current state and the role that a small country can play regardless of war and neighbouring pressure. Please welcome Michael to the podium.
Thank you, Frank, for that kind introduction. Before I say anything, I just want to say that I strongly support what Jim had said and Diane as far as export of Australian products are concerned, that we could be doing a great deal more. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to begin by congratulating Frank and the team for officially launching the Australian Business Summit Council and to wish them all the very best in promoting international trade and investment between Australia and the international business community. As an Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce, it has always been our strong view that Australia has so much to offer on the world stage. And it takes special people with a certain drive and a deep interest in other cultures that would open the way for eventual business that would benefit both the exporting and importing countries. In my personal experience, it's the initial personal relationship at first and the confidence one is able to achieve is the right way to begin a good and rewarding business relationship. When I look back and vividly remember attending business seminars related to the Middle East and what was said at the time, I say, thank God we have moved away from those misconceptions. For example, some of the speakers would say, if you are in the Gulf states, you have to do this and behave like that, etc. Coming from Beirut at the time, where I worked for many years in transacting business with the whole Gulf region and even North Africa, I'd ask myself, where did all these ideas come from? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we all know that a person's respectable behaviour, whether in social life or in business, is the proper way to conduct oneself. The Middle East is no different. And let me assure you that Australians, with their unique and straightforward approach, are highly respected in the Middle East. And I do mean the Middle East as far as the Gulf and other Middle East countries, far beyond North Africa and even East Africa. And no need to put on a special act or behaviour, simply to be as normal as possible. For those that have persevered and taken the time and adopted the right attitude to start a business relationship, the reward has been great, and I can tell you many stories. The Middle East, North and East Africa should always be on the agenda of Australian manufacturers, producers and exporters, because the whole area is a consuming region, awaiting to be tapped by those interested and eager to do business in that part of the world. Our Chamber would like to work closely with Frank and the team at the Australian Business Summit Council, and we'll be happy to provide any assistance possible that would help Australian companies transact in a safe and rewarding manner, whether it's engagement with potential business partners or accurate documentation and necessary certifications, shipping and safe methods of payment. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thanks to Frank and the Council for the opportunity to say these few words at this great start of the Council, and do wish them a most productive and rewarding future. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your very, very kind words. I'm really, really deeply touched. This is the third time that I've met Michael, so we haven't known each other for very long, but I feel as if I've known the gentleman for forever. And the respect that exists between myself and Michael cannot be put in words. I come from a Southern Italian background where respect and reputation are extremely important. And dealing with people like Michael, seeking out his expertise, his wisdom, his encouragement and so forth, is one of the reasons why I and my fellow board members of the ABSC are so committed to doing something good for the community at large out there. So thank you once again, Michael, and thank you for offering much more than what we often hear in the mainstream media about the Middle East not being just a war-torn, volatile, unstable region, but a region with promising trade and investment benefits for countries like Australia in an increasingly globalised world, where the search for and proactive engagement with hitherto inaccessible or unappreciated markets has sparked a lucrative diversification of bilateral business relationships, which the Australian Business Summit Council looks to develop in the furtherance of its objectives. Please, let's have once more a round of applause for Michael. Now, our final keynote speaker. Now, what can I say about this gentleman? Okay. Dr. Gleltov Seraphim is one of the most complete individuals whom I've had the pleasure to meet. Glelto is a businessman and entrepreneur, a technologist and an enterprise architect, as well as a public speaker, leadership trainer, human strategist and published author. A true Renaissance man. He's currently the president of the Australia-Brazil Business Council, which focuses on innovation and investment between Brazil, Australia and Israel. Moreover, he's also the chairman and founder of Ixon Group, a holding company with several businesses, including Ixon Cybersec, Ixon Cloud Native Secure Platforms, Ixon Aerospace Division, Ixon Finance, Ixon Health, Ixon Environment Technologies, Ixon FinTech and Ixon Agritech, focusing on cybersecurity solutions and creating reliable online environments where organisations can trust their data integrity and manage information systems security and corporate governance. Glelta will address us about boosting business investment and innovation in Australia, sustainable resource management and competitiveness. Please, a huge round of applause for Dr. Glelta Seraphim.
It's always hard to come after so many good speakers in here. But good afternoon, members of government, members of the diplomatic services. A special thank you to Dr. Frank Alafach, the president of the new Australian Business Summit Council. Entrepreneurs and corporate leaders, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Glelta Seraphim. As he said, I'm the president of the Australian Brazil Business Council, and it is a great privilege to be here and address you this afternoon. For me, it is an honor to address you with this, at this remarkable moment for the Australian Business Summit Council milestone. I'm delighted to be part of a community involved with business councils. These institutions, they address the need of entrepreneurs and business people. Our goal as a president of one of these councils has been to enhance now the business relationship and to create opportunities to do business between our Australia, country, private and public sector, and other nations of the world. During these last 4 years of my direct involvement with our council, a lot of ground has been covered in preparation for large investments in both directions, taking innovative technologies from Australia into Latin America, as in Brazil, and bringing other highly specific technologies and solutions from Brazil into Australia. The vision is how to explore a greater bond between these cultural differences. It is still a great challenge, but it has brought us together as it drives us to amalgamate the best results, delivering best outcomes to this region. I like the remarks of our ex-Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull. He said, the opportunities for us are absolutely extraordinary. There has never been a better time to be an Australian. There has never been a better time to be an Australian business. There has never been a more exciting times for Australia. The opportunities are enormous, and the only barriers, the only constraints, and the only limitations we have, my friends, are our own imagination or our own enterprise. It's all there. Close quotes. Australia is open for business investment. We have great opportunities to invest into sustainable resource management. Our approach to good environment control and our embracement to create a better part of the world opens great opportunities for research, for development, for innovative technologies, environmental technology research, making Australia the right place to develop and create this intellectual property. I appreciate now hearing from our Mr. Jim Harwell about the amount of things that we do in Australia is never enough for the Chinese market. And it means that we have so many opportunities to generate more and more and more in this country. And one of the areas that we have been working together with a lot of the private sector and the government in Australia is with the great program of the Australian North Development. And hopefully in the next 15 years, we'll be one of the greatest producers of grains in the world to feed our neighbors up north. Our role to open a path for foreign enterprises to invest in Australia is an utmost privilege, but also a responsibility. As our Prime Minister mentioned in his speech on the 21st of November at the Business Council of Australia, he said, "The world has never been more prosperous than it is today. The world has never been more connected than it is today. And the world has never had more opportunities than it has today. And all of that is true for Australia as well." Close quotes. Now, we know that every year or every 6 months in Australia, 100,000 people get into the marketplace. It's a city, the city perhaps of the size of Ballarat, of the number of people that actually come into the market. But I also heard that for the SMBs or SMEs in here, we have a massive problem of resource issues. And sometimes we have half developed some solutions, but we have a gap and we got stuck. So one of the goals that we have is to bring technologies from outside, collaborate together. Competition is good, and we will always compete with our friends from other countries. But when we actually have some technology and the other country has part of that technology, and if we bring this together, we can build a lot bigger, a lot better in this country. So one of our goals in here is to create a private sector initiative to to do research and development and create Australian IP with collaboration from Brazil and from Israel. So that's in my agenda for the next 24 months. Our objective as business council leaders is to focus on creating platforms for business operations, allowing our economy to boost, improving our lives and for our generations to come. Last year, companies contributed to $86 billion in company taxes. And this has certainly provided a major platform for growth in this country. We believe our government is serious about business, and as a part of different business councils, we are all interested in Australian investments and making Australia a successful economy. Major economic reforms are being implemented by our government, and as a business owner, it is important to see Australia results like the last quarter GDP growth of 3.4%. As the president of the Australian-Brazil Business Council and as an active member of the Australian-Israel Business Council, I see collaboration and innovation and R&D in Australia a great way to bring the capabilities to our country to participate and compete in the world markets. There is no doubt that Australia continues to be a competitive destination for investment. As Mr. Grant King, the president of the BCA, said, our major policy focuses will be on competitiveness in all its forms: tax, energy, industrial relations, regulation, and project approvals, to name just a few. We must be an attractive destination for capital if we are to grow at the desired rate. Close quotes. At the business councils, we form diverse platforms of business operations which share the same objectives and participating and expanding businesses across the continents, connecting other countries and especially within Australia. We must share this passion. We must share this vision, and we look for the same outcomes as other countries have. There is no doubt that the private sector is responsible for strong synergies between the Australian people and foreign economies. This afternoon at this summit, I can see how we can be focused and how we can build on identifying and creating highly rewarding areas of cooperation. In innovation, cybersecurity, finance trading, technologies with blockchain, artificial intelligence, and other great developments in data sciences, machine learning, predictive analytics, big data. There are just some of the ones that comes up to my mind because it's in my field of technology. These are exciting moments. We have been focusing a lot on agribusiness, using technology to actually produce more with more efficiency. These are exciting moments as the world turns into an information overdrive. Everything is focused on information, how much data you have, how can you actually maximize this and do more with less. As there has never been much bigger needs into these specialized fields as it is today. Australia has a great innovative initiative, but if we combine with some other countries, we can do a lot more and excel a lot more in this region. I would like to thank Dr. Alafaci for driving such a passion in business here in Australia and the connection with other nations that brings together a passion to build a better world. We would like to work together. I know we are creating history. Our legacy will be remembered as we will bring down the walls of distance and do business together. I want to thank you all for letting me to share these few minutes of these enthusiastic moments in my life. I want to thank the organizers and our government for making this possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Glelton. Thank you for your brilliant elucidation of the possibility that Australia offers to business investment and innovation as an economy that is increasingly diversifying into high value added, innovative and technologically advanced sectors of production which offset the significant decline in the manufacturing industry. Once more, people, a nice round of applause for Glelton. Thank you. Now, in the meantime, I've received another important message. Guess who from? Let's see what it says. Okay. You need to acknowledge, of course. Okay, you know why You've all heard the expression, behind every great man there's a woman, right? Well, I'm not great, okay? Behind every normal man there is a great woman too. Basically, rightly so, Sylvia has asked me to acknowledge the Swan Wine Group for providing the 6 lovely bottles of champagne. You'll be hearing more about Swan Wine Group later on. I won't spoil the surprise, but again, I want to acknowledge them and Mr. Stephen Gregg, the Sales and Marketing Director, who is here in representation of Swan Wine Group. Might I also add that we have another important person in the audience. I believe that, or 2 actually, I believe that Miss Ahmed has arrived. Fatma Ahmed, she's the Consul of Malaysia and the Director of the Malaysian Investment Development Authority. I got it right. Wonderful. I'd also like to acknowledge a representative from the Hyatt Regency Sydney, Mr. Jeremy Baker. Jeremy has been kind to join us today, and I just want to acknowledge here in front of Jeremy just how grateful we of the ABSC are for you providing this wonderful venue, for providing us with all this magnificent food, and for being true professionals and helping us with all of our needs. So thank you very, very, very much. Now, if John, where's John from Mikkel Productions, will help me go to the website of the organisation. Can we go to the website of the organisation here? As you no doubt recall, the organisation was established on the 20th of December 2018. But few of you know that the ABSC website was set up and made to go live no more than 3 weeks after the registration of the organisation with New South Wales Fair Trading. And thanks due in no small part to our IT Director, Mr. Vikas Rawat, who is not here because he's currently based in India. It's a very, very, very comprehensive website. If you've had a chance to look at it recently, you will notice that we've added some more pages to it. We've added some more information. We've also added a list, we've also added the logos of 4 corporate members. So within the space of 2 months, we've already obtained 4 corporate members. And these corporate members happen to be Malaysia Airlines. It's represented here today by Miss Nancy Gideus, who's sitting over there. Swan Wine Group again, represented by Stephen. You'll be happy to know that the CEO of Swan Wine Group, Mr. Wei Lee, is also the patron of our council. So thank you once again. Please pass on my thanks to Wei. Unfortunately, Wei and his wife Wendy can't be here today because they're currently in Adelaide on business. We also have Alliance Project Group, which is a corporate member, whose CEO Ruad El Ayubi, a dear friend of mine, is over there. And we also have Rex Opal, Rex Opal, who is represented here by Ms. Hong Huang, who is also the Vice President of the Australian Business Summit Council. Sylvia Lafaci here is the Secretary of the Australian Business Summit Council. Our Treasurer, Vahe Hamparian, unfortunately cannot be here today because I got a telephone call from him earlier today saying that his doctor, whom he had visited this morning, told him to go straight to hospital to get a scan done. And Vahe wanted to come here first, but I said to him, no, you go to hospital and get the scan done. And if you happen to make it here, so be it. If you can't, I'll make sure that you'll get properly acknowledged in the presence of everybody else. Mr. Vikas Rawat is the IT Director responsible for our website. As I said, he's currently based in India, so he can't be here at this time. We also have 2 other people that are very, very dear friends and colleagues of mine. The first one is Tae Sun Jun. And the second person is Taufan Giardani. Where's Taufan? Oh, there he is. Okay. Now, it's a small world, isn't it? Because this gentleman was a former student of mine, a former MBA student of mine. And now he's gone on to establish his own very, very successful IT company called Digo Enterprises. and he's also a valued member of the board of directors of our organisation. I think we have the website there. Okay, so let me just quickly take you through it. Talfin, can you go to the About Us page?
Yep.
Okay. As you can see, you've got an overview, our mission, the board of directors. If you click on the board of directors, you'll see my ugly face there. And as you scroll down, the faces of the other board members with a brief biographical profile of each one of them. Thank you, Talfin. If you can go back. Okay. If we go back to the contact us, contact at the bottom now, contact right at the bottom, About Us, go to About Us. There it is, our contact details. If you go to partners, so we have 4 sections there. We have patrons. I say patrons because we hope to have more than one patron. And if you click on the patrons section, we have the name of our patron. Now there's some work that still needs to be done, so we obviously need to upload a photo and include some information about the gentleman. Can you please go down to still partners and go down to the second, corporate members. There you have it. So you have 4 corporate members there: Swan Wine Group, Rex Opal, Malaysia Airlines, Alliance. Now if you click on Malaysia, but it'll take you straight to the website. The same for Alliance Project Group, the same for Swan Wine Group. In terms of as far as Rex Opal are concerned, they're in the process of upgrading their whole IT network, so we will be provided with their email address, or website address very soon. Thank you. Can you please go to membership again? No, sorry, partners again. My apologies. And then we've created 2 separate sections for MAUs and sponsors. If you go to membership, there are 2 sections there. If you click on membership benefits, you'll see there's quite some detailed information about the 3 levels of membership. There's a corporate membership level, there's a SME membership level, there's an individual membership level with all the associated benefits. So please have a look at that and do consider joining the organisation. I can assure you, you won't be disappointed. Sylvia and I and the other board members, we're the sorts of people that when we commit to something, we commit 100% or we don't commit at all. Thanks, Talfin. Can you please go to the events? Well, the events, we have some past events there in the lead up to the organisation's establishment. We've got upcoming events. The first upcoming event, which will now become a past event, is the actual media conference with Hyatt at the Hyatt Regency Sydney. Don't worry about the gallery, just go to there's a separate section newsletter, so we will be writing regular newsletters, the first of which will come out in March. If you go to publications, there are some publications there. As you can see, I've been getting a lot of light already in the media. I'm also writing regular articles for the Fortune Weekly magazine, which is published by the Australian New Express Daily, which is one of the largest Chinese newspapers in circulation here in Australia. So please feel free to go to those articles and have a read and let me know what you think. And that's basically it. Thank you, Talfin. Thank you so much. Now, does anybody have any questions they would like to ask? If not, please enjoy the food and we will probably reconvene in about, I'd say in about 5 minutes, whereupon I will call upon Mr. Michael Harkins to come to the podium to assist me with the presentation of certificates of membership. So please enjoy your food, network with each other, make sure you exchange business cards. You know what to do, I don't need to tell you. So please enjoy. Indeed, the ABSC Inc, as you've all seen from the partners page on the website, has already managed to secure 4 high-level corporate members whom I would like to publicly acknowledge in an official Certificate of Acknowledgement presentation ceremony. And to present these certificates of acknowledgement, I kindly call upon Mr. Michael Harkins, MVO PSM KSJ, to the podium. Before I do so though, I'd like to say a few words about Michael. Michael is the Secretary General of the Australia-China Friendship and Exchange Association. Before joining the ACFEA, Michael had worked with the Australian New South Wales public sector for 35 years. During this period, he worked in the New South Wales Department of Premier and Cabinet and was also seconded to the Premier's private office, supporting 9 Premiers in providing critical, timely and appropriate protocol advice. Michael has wide-ranging experience, skills, knowledge and sound judgment in all government activities at a senior level, including parliamentary and government operations in Australia, specifically in state, Commonwealth, ceremonial, diplomatic and consular protocols and related activities. Having been trained in the principles of international relations by the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Michael has also excellent knowledge of international relations through a close liaison at senior levels with the Australian Diplomatic Consular Corps. Now, you remember I told you I was going to explain what the MVO, KSJ and so forth? Okay, here it is. MVO refers to Member of the Royal Victorian Order from Her Majesty the Queen, awarded to Michael in 1992. PSM refers to the Public Service Medal, Australian Honours for Outstanding Public Service to the New South Wales Government and Australia. And KSJ refers to Knight of Honour, Order of St John of Jerusalem. May you please put your hands together in unison for Mr. Michael Harkins. The first certificate of acknowledgement goes to Swan Wine Group. Would Mr. Stephen Gregg, Sales and Marketing Director, Swan Wine Group, come up to the podium to receive the certificate? On behalf of Miss Wendy Marl, Chief Operating Officer, Swan Wine Group.
I feel like a proud father of this. It's at the launch today and I get the first certificate. I'll take it home.
Well done, thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Back to Mr. Lee's office.
The second certificate of acknowledgement is handed to Malaysia Airlines. Would Miss Nancy Gideus, Corporate Accounts Manager, Malaysia Airlines, approach the podium to receive the certificate?
Thank you.
Thank you. The third certificate of acknowledgement is presented to Rex Opal Pty Limited. Would Ms Hong Huang, Vice President of the Australian Business Summit Council Inc, accept the certificate on behalf of Mr Robson Wong, who is currently in China on business? And the fourth certificate of acknowledgement is presented to Alliance Project Group. Would Mr Ruad El Ayubi, CEO of Alliance Project Group, approach the podium to receive the certificate?
That's right.
Thank you to all our corporate members and thank you to Michael. Please, let's have a loud round of applause for Michael and the 4 corporate members of the Australian Business Summit Council Inc. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we've almost reached the conclusion of the formal part of the media conference to officially launch the Australian Business Summit Council Inc. As with all successful occasions, it goes without saying that this media conference would not have been possible without the extraordinary work of the ABSC Inc. team. Can I get all of the members, the board members of the ABSC Inc. team once again to stand up, please? Those of you who are here. Thank you so very much. As I mentioned to you earlier, 2 are absent. One is currently based in India. The other gentleman had to go to hospital for a quick scan. So let's hope to God that he's okay. In particular, though, I have to thank the Secretary of the ABSC Inc., who, as usual, is always running around. Mrs. Sylvia Lafaci. Sylvia, behave yourself. As I was saying, in particular, I have to thank the Secretary of the ABSC Inc., Mrs. Sylvia Lafaci, for choosing the 5-star Hyatt Regency Sydney as the venue for this occasion, designing the formal invitation flyers, preparing the official program booklets, conceiving of and procuring the mementos for each of the attendees to take away with them, and liaising with Ms. Rosanna Yip and the Hyatt Regency Events Management Team. Thank you, Sylvia. Indeed, it goes without saying that the entire Hyatt Regency Events Management Team need to be profusely thanked for providing this magnificent room and the extraordinary catering services that we have benefited from today. So thank you so very, very much. Jeremy, please pass on my congratulations to Rosanna and the team. Now, as I invite you all to remain for the official photo session and to network with each other during the remainder of the occasion, and we can be here until 4:30, so we've got another 20 minutes to go, I would like to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation to each and every one of you for attending this media conference to officially launch the Australian Business Summit Council Inc. Needless to say, you're all on our mailing list and will continue to receive emails to our events throughout the year and in future. And we do seriously hope that some of you may even consider joining our organisation, becoming involved with our organisation in an official capacity by taking out one of the 3 membership categories that I have taken you through on our website. So thank you all once again from the bottom of my heart. Please don't leave. We're going to put some chairs here for us all to have a photo, a group photo, and please continue to network with each other until 4:30, and then we'll put a stop to the event. Thank you so very much.